I was on one knee, ring in hand, in front of an empty chair in a crowded restaurant. The usual hum of conversation around me had stopped, as if all sound had been sucked out of the room. All eyes around my table were fixed on me, most of them expressing pity, and a few people had their jaws wide open in shock. "Well, that didn't quite go as planned," I said quietly to no one in particular, rising to my feet, tucking the ring back into my pocket, and sitting down in my seat across from the empty chair. "Can I have another one?" "A double, please," I added, picking up my empty glass of Woodford Reserve. I felt like all eyes in my part of the restaurant were fixed on me. My field of vision had shrunk to a small window. I suppose it could have been worse. The restaurant could have been sucked into a giant vortex, or into another dimension. "Here's your Woodford, sir," a disembodied voice said as a glass of bourbon on the rocks magically appeared on my table. "Thank you," I muttered as the sound suddenly resumed in our neighborhood. I picked up the glass of bourbon and took a large gulp, calming down from the smooth, burning sensation of the liquid as it reached my stomach. Smooth, with 3 or 4 O's in the middle. Looks like the day hadn't been a complete failure. I set the bourbon aside and took the rest of my steak sandwich. I looked across the table at the half-eaten Cobb salad sitting in front of the now empty seat. I assumed that a recent visitor to the place would not be returning to finish her meal. The disembodied voice informed me again that the new drink it had placed on my table was courtesy of the 2 businessmen who sat somewhere to my right. I turned my head in that direction and nodded, ignoring my benefactors. "That was pretty cold. We're sorry," came a voice from across the table. "Thank you. I appreciate it," I replied quietly, not looking at them. Shit, 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 shit. How could a day that was supposed to be a milestone moment in my life go so badly? She should have said yes when I asked the question, maybe burst into tears, not screamed, "Oh no," or jumped up and ran out of the restaurant in tears. Somehow, another bourbon appeared at my table. I nodded and raised my hand, trying to show a friendly gesture to whoever sent this one. How could I have missed it so badly? I sipped some more. Tracy Pro seemed perfect from the moment I'd first seen her on the campus of Ohio State University in the fall of my senior year. I was playing frisbee with my friends on the open grass when this dark-haired goddess and 3 other pretty girls walked by on their way to class. It was a warm fall day, and she was wearing a tight white top with a low V-neck in the front and tight short denim shorts. She was my definition of a walking wet dream. I had just intercepted the ball behind her back and was about to make a throwback to one of the guys when I spotted her. I'm pretty sure I twisted my tongue watching her walk by. "You better wipe your saliva off before you throw that thing back," Harry Davidson shouted to me, interrupting my obscene reverie. I heard the girls giggle, blushed slightly, and let loose a laser bolt right into Harry's smart mouth. None of the girls in the group were below an 8 on a scale of 10. Although I never lacked confidence, I knew I had no more than a 7. At 6 feet 170 pounds, I was athletically built, but not heavily muscled. I was quite good-looking, I thought, with big brown eyes and a mop of shoulder-length, curly, dark brown hair that was never the same 2 days in a row. I know I should have let the foursome move on, but at that moment, all thoughts were occupied by the little brain. I trotted up to the group, introduced myself, Jake Arnett, by the way, and asked for a date with the goddess of my dreams. "How long have you had trouble talking to girls, Mr. Arnett?" A tall blonde woman standing next to my goddess asked. "Never done it before, but damn it, I've done nothing, accomplished nothing," I said, doing my best Mr. Cliché impression. The goddess blushed. Her big green eyes seemed to grow even wider. Then the most amazing thing happened. She smiled and said yes. I somehow held back the urge to jump up and do my best dance. "You can't be serious, Tracy. It's not like this guy can afford a haircut, let alone a date," the short brunette with the pixie cut commented. I know I threw a glance at whoever was talking, but held my tongue. I was smart enough to realize that you should never insult a member of a girl's inner circle if you expect to get close to her. We made a date for the following Friday. I was totally excited about a date with this goddess, but I was being realistic. Once is a miracle that will never happen again, so I might as well enjoy my time with her. I told her to dress casually. I took her out to play mini golf, then we went go-karting. We had dinner at my favorite cafe, where she had never been, and probably never would have been if it weren't for me. I waited a week before asking her out a second time, anticipating rejection, and was shocked, to say the least, when she said yes again. The second date led to a third, and a few weeks later we were already a couple. We had sex on the sixth date, and that night I found out I was her second partner. The first was her high school sweetheart, with whom she'd been with for 6 years until he unceremoniously dumped her 3 months before I showed up. I was her first boyfriend since her ex blew her off and promptly left town with the daughter of a rich man. She told me she was devastated when the guy disappeared because they had talked about marriage. She seemed a little unsure of me at first, but by the time we graduated 7 months later, I'd say she was completely over him. We actually moved in together after we both got jobs in the same city after graduation. Our new careers were off to a good start. Tracy worked in human resources at a large manufacturing company, and I worked in marketing at a pharmaceutical plant with a national presence. I thought we were doing more than well both in and out of bed, so as our second year together approached, I discreetly went to a jewelry store and bought an engagement ring. I made reservations at a high-end restaurant for Friday night. There's an old saying that goes that if you're going to propose to a woman in a public place, you better be sure of her answer. I'd say I was 98% sure. Obviously, I was a complete moron by the time I was ready to leave the restaurant. Very lonely, humiliated, and unengaged, I had consumed a total of 6 double bourbons, all but the first being sent to my table by my well-meaning fellow diners who had witnessed Tracy's rejection of my proposal. I asked the waiter to call me a cab. I didn't want to add a drunk driver to my list of accomplishments for the evening. Tracy wasn't home when I got a ride to our apartment. It didn't look like she'd headed home after running out of the restaurant. I took off my jacket, tie, and dress shoes, and opened ESPN on the box, hoping this would be one of those nights when Nicole Briscoe is still trying to prove she's sexy by wearing clothes that aren't exactly professional. I just wanted to look at the beautiful breasts and legs while wallowing in self-pity and trying to figure out what was next in my life. I knew the key to that would be talking to Tracy, but honestly, at that moment, I just wanted to be left alone. Tracy never came home that night, and I fell asleep in my clothes on the couch. It was okay, I liked my dry cleaning, and I had to give them some business. Since I drank bourbon nonstop the night before, I woke up Saturday morning with no hangover. Nevertheless, the shower was lovely, and the coffee contributed to both mental clarity and brain clarity. Tracy entered the apartment almost just after noon, dressed in jeans and a casual top, and carrying the clothes she'd been wearing at the restaurant in her bag. I was sitting on the edge of the couch in the living room, quietly drinking coffee. The TV was off. She didn't notice me until she heard me place my coffee mug on the coaster on the table next to the couch. "Oh!" she exclaimed, jumping back when she heard me. "I didn't think you were home. I didn't see your car in the parking lot when Marcia brought me home, so I'm assuming you were too drunk to drive home last night. How does your head feel this morning?" "My head feels great this morning. I just didn't want to risk getting intoxicated last night," I replied. My heart, on the other hand, feels like it's been put through a shredder. "What the hell, woman? I thought that's what we had going on." Tracy walked into the living room like she was walking the plank in a pirate movie. She didn't look me in the eye once. "Yeah, I guess I owe you an apology and an explanation," she said, sitting down on the far end of the couch and turning to face me. Tracy talked about her relationship with Don Fielding and how devastated she was by his betrayal. It made sense until she said she still loved him, and if he ever came back into her life, she wanted to spend one last night with him to end it. "Wait, what?" I muttered. You still love him and you want to sleep with him one last time? Is that what I'm hearing? Well, sort of, she wheezed. I doubt he'll ever come back into my life, but yes, I'd like to have completion. I think if you loved me enough to give me a pass, in case he ever came back, that would be the ultimate way to show me your love, then I think I'd agree to marry you. She still couldn't look me straight in the eye. I stared at her in shock for I don't know how long. Finally, I heard her intermittent breathing as we both sat in silence. A hall pass in case he ever comes back is the best way for me to show my love for you, I muttered. She finally looked me in the eye, and I realized that she really hoped I would agree to this insanity. I love you more than I can say, Tracy, but I don't hate myself enough to stick my head in a noose, I growled. That would be a disaster just waiting to happen. But the chances of Don ever coming back are slim, she said. Like everything else, a hall pass would be your way of committing to me. My way of committing to you would be a loyalty oath. And your way of committing to me would be the same oath. We won't put in a backup fidelity clause. No, I'm not doing that. Do you see the lobotomy scar on my forehead? I replied. But I thought you wanted to marry me, she exclaimed. Apparently not enough to think about throwing away your self-respect, I said. I'm sorry, babe. It's not going to happen in this lifetime. I'll move out as soon as I find a place to live. That's it? You don't want to discuss this any further? You don't even want to think about my needs? She said. Needs or desires? Either way, it's not going to happen, I said. How about my needs or desires? I got up from the couch, grabbed my phone and left, and Tracy was left sobbing. It took all my strength not to put her in my arms and tell her everything was going to be okay. The Uber I called had barely pulled out of the parking lot before she started flooding my phone with messages and calls, none of which I answered. We thought you were going to call last night and tell us how excited Tracy was, my mom said when she answered my call. I had told my parents about my plans a week ago. They were happy for both of us, as they really liked Tracy. Yeah, but the evening didn't go exactly as planned, I said. My parents were as shocked as I was when I told them the story. So, you and her are over? My father asked. You're not going to think about it or give her a chance to change her mind about the hall pass? No. She told me she still has strong feelings for the guy. I'm not going to marry someone who still has strong feelings for someone else, I said. That night I was hanging out with my best friend Brian and another friend Scott at their apartment when my phone rang from Tracy's parents. Although I'd ignored dozens of calls from Tracy, I respected her parents too much to ignore their call. Jake, we think you should sit down with Tracy and work things out, Tracy's mother said stiffly. If you love each other, there has to be some way to work things out. You know the chances of her former asshole ex coming back are slim to none. I'm sorry, Mrs. Prowl, but I'm not giving her a pass because if it happens that he comes back and she has sex with him, we're screwed. Okay. I will never, ever share my wife with anyone, I emphasized. Stupid pride, she replied. You'll never find another woman as beautiful as my daughter. I can't believe you're willing to give her up for the slim chance she'll sleep with another man. So you're saying she's willing to risk giving me up for the minuscule chance of having sex with another man? I don't think that says anything good about me, I said. Brian called another friend of his who was looking for a roommate, and before the night was over, I had a new place to live. I moved in the next day. Tracy tried to talk me out of leaving the apartment until it dawned on her that I wasn't just moving out of the apartment. I was breaking up with her. Why do we have to break up, Jake? Just because we can't arrange a wedding right now? I love you. You love me. Maybe you'll change your mind later, she said. That attitude is exactly why we're breaking up, baby. You never once thought about changing your mind, I said. Tracy called me every few days to talk. She asked me out several times, but I kept turning her down. I tried to feign indifference toward her, but in reality my spirit was broken. About 6 months after my breakup with Tracy, we were at a popular bar dance club on a Saturday night, when she and Brian showed up together and walked to a vacant table at the other end of the room. The conversation at our table died down as the three other guys at the table watched the couple enter. "Wow, that's not cool. What happened to brothers before hookers?" asked Fred Winkler. "Don't worry about it, guys," I replied. "They can both date whoever they want. It's been forever since we've been together. It's not a problem, unless, of course, Brian tries to cross the street in front of my car." The other guys laughed nervously. I smiled and shrugged. I thought about leaving, but decided I wasn't going to run and hide. About 30 minutes later, a nervous-looking Brian showed up at our table to say hello. We all acknowledged him and were polite, but it was forced conversation. No one mentioned his date for the evening, and he seemed happy enough not to mention her. In the months that followed, I saw Brian much less frequently as he and Tracy continued to date. Neither of the guys talked about him in my presence, which was fine with me. I did, however, find out that Tracy had moved in with Brian about a year after they started dating. I'll admit I felt a pang of jealousy when I found out Brian and Tracy were engaged, but I also wondered if she'd set him up for a hall pass like she'd done to me. I never asked about it, though, as I didn't want anyone to know I was still a little anxious. A year later, the couple got married. I was invited, but I had to send regrets because I had to be 3 states away from them on the big day as part of a motorcycle rally. I bought myself a used Harley Fat Boy and spent a few weekends on the road with a group of new friends. Love is like a ninja. It sneaks up on you and overpowers you when you least expect it. 5 years after breaking up with Tracy, I married an Asian American babe named Lee Mendelstein. Yes, you read that right. Asian American and Mendelstein in the same sentence. Turns out her father was a Jewish lawyer from Chicago who fell in love with a Korean businesswoman while on a business visit to South Korea. As you can imagine, she was the only Asian in her Jewish school class. Lee started working at the same company where I now serve as assistant vice president a year after graduating from college. She was 4'10", 100 pounds, athletic, energetic, with long, straight black hair down to her waist. She was smart and a bit of a badass. I liked her immediately, and 2 weeks after we first met, I asked her if she wanted to follow me on a short 100-kilometer run with the club. She agreed, and I was shocked when I walked in to pick her up and she appeared in a tight red t-shirt, even tighter blue jeans and boots, with her hair braided in a loose braid down her back. Over the years, I had completely lost touch with Brian. I knew he and Tracy had 3 kids and Lee and I had 2, so no one was more surprised than I was when his name popped up on my phone one day, 12 years after he and Tracy were married. Yes, I guessed why he was calling. Within minutes, we exchanged forced pleasantries. He apologized for not keeping in touch with me over the years. I took some of the blame for that. Then he told me the reason for the call. "I'm embarrassed, Jake, and I'm not sure if you're going to answer me, but I have to ask. Did you break up with Tracy because she was still in love with her first boyfriend?" asked Brian. I wondered if he could sense my smile through the phone. I know I was silent for a few long seconds. "Yeah." Silence again. "Okay, I understand, but I probably need to talk to you. I need more than one-word answers," he whined. Silence again while I decided what I should open with. "Okay. Here's the thing, Brian," I began. "I've never told any of my friends before, but since it's been a while since you've been a friend, here it is. I asked her to marry me, and after she first told me that she was still in love with Don Fielding, she said she'd accept my proposal if I gave her a pass, a get-out-of-jail-free card so she could sleep with Don Fielding once if he ever came into her life again. There's no way in hell I'd let her meet another man for any reason. We would never come to an agreement, and I wasn't going to live knowing she was keeping a piece of her heart for another man." "Yeah, she didn't tell me about this Fielding thing until I asked her to marry me," Brian said. "Then she hit me up with this hall pass thing, saying the chances of her ever using it were pretty slim, but if I really loved her..." And you wanted this girl so badly that you agreed to it, I finished for him. Yeah, he sighed heavily. Guess who showed up in town a couple weeks ago? I don't know how he found her or she found him, but after we argued about it for a week, she balked and said she'd do it because I agreed to let her do it. And if I try to divorce her, she'll take everything she can from me and ruin me and the kids. God, I can't believe this is happening to me. I thought I had everything. There was confusion in his voice. I felt sorry for the guy. Why didn't you ever say anything, especially after we started dating? He asked in a breaking voice. I thought we were friends. Yeah, I thought we were friends too. And then you started dating my ex. A real friend would have at least talked to me first, and I might have told him what he needed to know, I said. Okay, I agree, Brian said. But she was great, and honestly, I wouldn't have listened to anything you had to say. I wanted her. I really wanted her. And you got her. If you were worried about me trying to get her back, that's never going to happen, and now you know why. So what are you going to do? You know, you gave her a hall pass. You can't claim she cheated on you. Are you going to put up with that so you can keep your relationship with the kids? I asked. I guess. I love them more than life itself. I'd say that about Tracy until a couple weeks ago. I mean, I still love her to an extent, but it's hard when it's poked in my face that I'm only number 2 on her list, and I'll be looking over my shoulder for another guy to come back one day and take her away from me completely, he said. In the meantime, I'll have to live with her for one night when her favorite lover will haunt me forever. You took a chance and got burned, buddy. Truth be told, part of me wants to jump for joy that I'm not the one who got burned, but part of me still feels sorry for you, I said. Thanks, I guess. Thanks for talking, Brian said before unplugging. I grinned to myself. I'd lost a goddess, but gained everything. Ever since the day I met Lee, I always thought I was the luckiest man on the planet. Sometimes it's nice to get confirmation.